So yeah, 2 matches still going. Tom Ross is up a game on Paul Cheon, and Gerry Thompson is up a game on Josh Utter-Leyton. We'll get there momentarily. So yeah, Josh, definitely interested in seeing how this brew plays out. It sounds like Sidisi Whip got there in a log win. I mean, I'm calling Gerry's deck Sidisi Whip. It's only got 2 whips. It's not, all in on the whip plan. It doesn't even bother with Hornet Queens, actually. You haven't checked out the deck list, but there are a lot of sweet one-ofs in the deck.
Yeah, Gerry said, he was trying to think of something sweet. I told him, that he had to do that. He said he was going to disappoint me, but I actually do like this match, or this deck.
Yeah, it's got Singleton Merciless Executioner is kind of fun. There's a Soul of Innistrad. There's a Dragon Lord Atarka hanging out. A Sidisi Undead Vizier. All right, so what do we got going on? Josh is on the top of your screen. Gerry's on the bottom. We're not going to have hand cams on the live look-ins, so live look-ins, we just get gameplay.
Well, we have the Courser cam here, so we get to see
we have the Courser.
some amount of Gerry's action. Also, I can't agree with Josh's choice of White Bordered Caves of Koilos plus mismatched basics like Ravnica, Shadowmoor. Like, he really is just not respecting the game or the viewers here.
You're the only one who's allowed to troll? Is that how this works?
Josh isn't trolling. He's just doing that without thinking. That's even worse. But this is not a good situation for Josh. I mean, he's got removal, but Gerry's got 3 coursers here. I guess if Josh is able to Murderous Cut plus Valorous Stance the 2 coursers, then deal with there's an Ashiok in play. Never mind. Ashiok is awesome, and Ashiok into a fairly light board is even better. So
yeah, we'll have to move our Courser cam off the top of the Ashiok when we get a chance.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, now this game looks a little better.
Yeah, Ashiok Courser is also a pretty bad interaction for the person with the Courser in that you can choose not to Ashiok them if their top card is bad. You get to Ashiok them if their top card is good. And like Josh, for example, could put a Wayfinder or a Caryatid into play if he doesn't mind Gerry drawing, say, Doomwick Giant, which doesn't look that great right now either. Though the strategy of just 1-for-1ing Sidisi Whip's creatures is not generally great, even though Gerry's not full on Sidisi Whip, but he still has Whip of Erebos. He still has cards like Den Protector, so cards like Valorous Stance are not really going to just destroy Gerry by any stretch.
Yeah, Josh, meanwhile, we're talking about Esper Mentor. If you weren't here earlier for the description, you should check out the deck list on this one, because it's kind of new. It's essentially an Esper Control shell, but with Monastery Mentors and Soulfire Grandmasters as the creature set. No dragons. No, none of the normal Esper Control late game, but all the other elements.
Yeah, it's replacing dragons with the cheaper cards and also playing cheaper spells to accommodate the fact that Monastery Mentor and Soulfire Grandmaster both really pay you for playing cheap spells. It's interesting. I've never seen Soulfire Grandmaster X4 in a deck with 0 burn spells, so I'm curious how that works out. As a 2/2 lifelinker that can start buying back spells, it's still a powerful card, but I don't know how well it works out to have it with... Well, you're not really getting the bonus of giving your spells lifelink. I mean, giving Murderous Cut lifelink is sweet and all that, but...
Yeah, those Ashioks are in from the sideboard.
And looking pretty effective here. Ashiok is very good against like the mid-range green decks that don't have 2 drops that can attack, because just turn 3 Ashiok is pretty strong. Soulfire Grandmaster is not a card I would expect to really pull its weight in this matchup post-board, so I'm curious if Josh has a plan. I also like the Frontier Bivouac that Gerry's got going here. Just the full 4 colors.
Sometimes you want to cast Dragon Lord Atarka, right?
That is the idea. There's just the 1 Dragon Lord though, plus 1 in the sideboard, so that's not a lot of... That's not a lot of red cards, but Dragon Lord Atarka plus Whip of Erebos is a really good combo. So I think trying to take advantage of that and still have outs to cast it at the very least. So Ashiok can still put in a 2-drop in to defend. It looks like a Sylvan Caryatid or a Soulfire, or rather a Satyr Wayfinder is going to come in here. drawing extra cards here, and also leaving the island on top because you know that you don't care about that. And Gerry also has polluted Delta still, so he can shuffle if he needs to. If Josh has a treasure cruise, it's getting pretty good here. It's only costing 2 mana right now. If you can cruise into more removal or another counter, you can just ride Ashiok to victory with. I mean, Ashiok's already starting to go off here, and it looks to me like a treasure cruise might be going on stack. No, this is. Oh yeah, it is.
Well, there's some Delve cards. The telltale red outlines.
Yeah, red outlines. Man, every time in Vintage when your Delver opponent just their graveyard starts lighting up, you're like, like you know that they're about to draw a bunch of cards, and that's usually not great for you.
I notice you've already redecorated our chat room with Treasure Cruise art.
Someone had to put something there. I've got to be able to tell the VSL and the SSL apart, even though I guess VSL is going inactive for some number of weeks. Give me time to come up with some sweet decks. So Gerry does get to attack with the Courser here, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Wayfinder just went ahead and chumped. It seems like the natural play. Grandmaster keeping back Gerry's Wayfinder. Gerry is on 4 cards in hand, but at this point, Josh does know if all of them, if not most, or most of them, if not all of them. So it's possible that he's got a plan for like Doomwake Giant if that were to come down, or any other card. It looks like Gerry's not even playing anything here. Josh is going to need to play a relevant spell if he wants to defend Ashiok this turn. At least he does, if he doesn't want Ashiok to go back down to 1. Ashiok does go up to 3 and can just keep continuously getting hit by Courser. So that's not that bad. So you notice Gerry didn't play Whip last turn, and then Josh just got to duress it. I imagine that Gerry knows that Josh has like a Disdainful Stroke or something along those lines in his hand, and Gerry wants to wait till he draws one of his hand disruption spells or something, because both players have a lot of knowledge about what's going on, which is why you see plays like no play on 7 mana when he could cast Whip.
Soulfire Grandmaster number 2.
Oh, Josh getting aggressive here. He could have kept the Grandmasters back to double block.
It did seem like double blocking Courser was a reasonable line there.
Yeah, well, that would have been my first inclination.
This is now our last match. Tom Ross was victorious. So Tom defeats Paul Cheon 2-0. Tom will be taking on Owen Turtenwald in the semis. Brian Kibler, meanwhile, waits for the winner of this. And we are not going to play those semis simultaneously. So we're definitely going to play those one at a time and enjoy each of them in their entirety.
And I did verify in the chat that Tom Ross did beat Paul Cheon easily. So I needed to get the full update on the match.
You just had to check with Paul, make sure he didn't put up a fight.
Yeah, I mean, we could say like it was a close match between Tom and Paul, but we know now that is a lie. Now that we know that Tom won very easily. So
now that you've asked, it's a good thing you clarified.
And it turns out Josh did not want to double block because he had Valor Stance for the Courser. So he just Valor Stance the Courser. He's leaving 1 Soulfire Grandmaster back because he'd rather Ashiok keep ticking up.
Mm-hmm.
Ashiok's looking pretty juicy here with triple Sidisi, Doomwake Giants, Den Protector, which I guess is not the best to just put into play, but basically enough ammunition that if Josh can stop a Whip from coming down, I don't think Gerry's going to be able to win this game very easily.
And there's only the 1 Whip left, right?
And Ifro asks a pretty good question in the chat because he asks if is Jeskai tokens busted, which is what Tom was playing, or is it just very easy to beat Cheon? And that's a hard question to answer. We're going to have to see in the semis here. If Tom wins the whole queue tonight, then we can maybe conclude Jeskai tokens busted. If he loses immediately, then well, I would assume it is the alternative. Josh just fully going off. The Sidisi's not at her best in a deck with 6 or 7 creatures in it.
She's still a 3/3.
Yeah, and Josh doesn't need that much more to put away the game here. So if Gerry can just resolve a Whip or cast Thoughtseize into Whip, or Den Protector here gets back a Whip is actually really nice. So depending on what Josh has, it's not like his board position is completely insurmountable. He's just ahead.
Ojutai's Command.
That's
With
pretty
lifelink,
awesome.
crucially.
Lifelink. But we're still using it as dismiss here, or cryptic command, what have you.
Exclude.
Yeah, and that'll be enough for Gerry.
Yeah, I think he has seen enough. Makes sense. So we're going to get a game 3.
Yeah, and this is one of the matchups you don't see very often of Esper Mentor Treasure Cruise against Sidisi Whip with a Tarka. So I'm curious how many of these decks end up showing up at Toronto. I wouldn't imagine the exact deck necessarily, but I could see some of the ideas here certainly being used. I mean, this is definitely enough time. 3 days is plenty of time to adjust if you're like, oh, I actually kind of like that combination. So
yeah, no, these decks are sweet. Now, Monastery Mentor is the card that I'm sort of most interested in out of Josh. This is not a card that we've seen a ton of in Standard, but it's all over the place in Vintage. You know,
yeah.
where do you come down on Monastery Mentor as, I mean, I guess I'm curious about your take in both formats.
It's better than I thought in Vintage. I still don't think it's like absurd, but it's good. It definitely has its place. In Standard, I've actually played a lot of Monastery Mentors. I played a lot of Jeskai tokens with Mentors in the deck, and I like Mentor, but you need to support it. You can't just play Monastery Mentor in your deck and have it be good. I mean, clearly it needs spells, but more than that, it needs protection. You can't tap out for a 3-drop and just have it die without getting value. So here, Josh has protection. He's got, Duress, 4 Thoughtseize and a Duress, plus cheap spells like Anticipate. And he's got a Ojutai's Command, Treasure Cruise, a bunch of card draw to make sure his hand is full. Also, Murderous Cut. You can play Mentor and Murderous Cut in the same turn. I've also played cards like God's Willing, and Valorous Stance is one of the perfect cards for this deck because it kills one of the opposing threats and it protects your Monastery Mentor. So, in general, I like Mentor, but it just takes a lot of work.
There are 3 different decks playing Monastery Mentors today out of our 8.
Yeah,
Brian Kibler has a couple of them in sorry, not Brian Kibler. Brad Nelson has a couple of them in his Bant Heroic deck. Tom Ross has a couple of them in his Jeskai Tokens deck.
Yeah, and then we've also, of course, got Josh here. And so far, Monastery Mentors are 1-1. Jeskai Tokens won its match, and Bant Heroic lost its match. So we'll see how it goes here.
This is the tiebreaker?
This is the tiebreaker. But Monastery Mentor is just a powerful card when left unchecked, and part of the strength in Vintage, of course, is you have 0 mana spells like Moxes and Gush, but in Standard, you have to work a little harder, and that's, I think, why we haven't seen quite as much, is that you've got cards like Courser and Rabblemaster, which those are 3 drops that win the game when unchecked also, but they don't take much work, either in deck building or in playing the game, whereas Mentor, you need to put in cheap spells, and you need to draw them in conjunction, whereas Rabblemaster and Courser, you can kind of just cast, and it's on your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So...
All right, on to game 3. This is the last first-round match, still going. Josh and Gerry are tied a game apiece, obviously. Sidisi Whip plays Esper Mentor. It looked like the Ashiok in from Josh's sideboard really got the job done in game 2. To see how this one plays out.
Yeah, basically Josh was able to stick Ashiok and just trade 1-for-1, play a bunch of spells, and trading for Gerry's spells. Thoughtseizes went back and forth, Duresses, that sort of thing. And that's a pretty classic way to win the game. Planeswalkers will do that, and even though Ashiok's not the most board-affecting Planeswalker, a couple turns of Ashiok's still going to win you the game. And so remember, we don't get hand cams because this is our backup match, but next round we're going to have full hand cams for both matches.
Definitely. And the first match that we'll play will be Owen and Tom. Those guys have been waiting patiently, so we'll let them play the first semi, and we'll give Josh a break before, well, Josh or Gerry, whoever wins will get a break before taking on Brian Kibler.
Farika, not the most aggressive play. Farika's not going to be active very often. This is more of a long game kind of incremental advantage card. Thoughtseize does help enable Farika just because you're able to maybe dump a creature in the graveyard, but for the most part, Gerry would have much rather cast like a Courser or something like that.
Thoughtseize took Treasure Cruise.
That's smart. I would take Treasure Cruise with Thoughtseize. So of the 6 lands that have been played...
Treasure Cruise. That's a 1-up Treasure Cruise in from Gerry's sideboard.
I like Treasure Cruise in general. I mean, obviously. But I also like it in your sideboard in attrition-based matches like this. Of the 6 lands played so far, 5 came into play tapped, which is kind of funny. All right. 5 mana, 4/6. No other ability. At least not right now. Later, Doomlake Giant can kill off Mentor tokens, but against you know, essentially a control deck. Doomwake is just a kind of big creature.
Yeah, Gerry clearly set up to clearly sees this as an attrition matchup, and I guess that is how it's played. But I mean, it feels like Josh has. I mean, he's got tutus in his deck. He's got mentors in his deck. Seems like he's capable of coming out and pressuring an opponent. Certainly hasn't done it the way in the games we've seen though.
Yeah, I think Josh pressure is more like, can he Thoughtseize or Duress the relevant cards, play a mentor, and have it live for 2 or 3 turns? But that's not really like curve out beat you. It's more like just play it.
I'll buy that.
Well, Josh, let's see, taking a look at the deck list, Josh does not have a ton of sweepers. He's got like an Aether Spouts, Elspeth, and then his sideboard is just a bunch of cheaper cards like 1 phone removal, which is much better with Ashiok in general. So yeah, Josh, not really. If he gets too far behind, he doesn't have one way to like hit the reset button.
4/6 too good. Josh takes it down with Valorous Stance. And a morph creature. I wonder what it could be. Actually, there is some doubt after sideboarding, right?
There's a slight amount. Gerry has
a couple Deathmist Raptors in his sideboard, but his main deck is just the Den Protectors.
He's got 2 Deathmist Raptors and then 3 Den Protectors. Den Protectors more likely both because there's 3 of it and because Gerry might not have all the Raptors in here, though I think that Raptor's pretty good in the mirror, so I wouldn't mind playing it. Ooh, the main phase Anticipate. This generally indicates that you don't have a ton of lands. Not a guarantee. It could be a way to bluff that you don't have a ton of lands, but often that is what it means. Looks like Soulfire Grandmaster getting played. Yeah, I still don't love Soulfire Grandmaster post board here. It just doesn't seem like it does anything. I mean, I wonder if Josh has a specific reason he likes bringing it in, or at least having it. Maybe not quite bring it in, more like having it as opposed to taking it out. Den Protector is a nice card. This is a very solid card. You can play this card in Standard without really having to combo with it. Obviously, it is a combo with Deathmist Raptor being the main card and Satyr Wayfinder, being like backup. But just playing morphed Deathmist or Den Protectors and unmorphing them is pretty strong.
Did you guys have a lot of? I guess you guys had Kibler building Den Protector Raptor decks in preparation for the Pro Tour.
Yeah, we had. He was the main one, but we had other people building them as well. I don't think that they were bad. I just don't think they quite got there, at least not for me. Actually, it's still looking solid here.
Was there at least a never-ending supply of Raptor puns?
Oh yeah. That goes without saying. But along with most things that go without saying, I do still say them. So that's never stopped me. Thoughtseize making it a little harder for Josh to protect Ashiok, but Ashiok's still looking quite solid. I guess the Den Protector does chip away, but there are a lot of cards Josh can play to kind of stop that, and even then it takes a couple turns to kill Ashiok here. A tasted out of Raptor. Oh. I wonder if Thoughtseize either is missing or just Raptor has like multiple, like 2 Treasure Cruises in hand. That would be pretty awesome.
Treasure Cruise, Treasure Cruise, Treasure Cruise.
Well, I was almost right. There was actually 3 Treasure Cruises, which means clearly you don't take a Treasure Cruise because the third one doesn't matter. But taking Mentor is good there. Yeah, and taking Mentor is good because otherwise Josh could play Mentor into Cruise. Josh is still going to get some good value off Treasure Cruise here.
Wow, there's a Whip of Erebos in play now, though.
Whip does imply some good long game value for Gerry, especially since Josh, I don't believe, has a way to remove the Whip from play at all. Let's see. He does not appear so, no. Yeah, once the Whip comes down, it's there to stay. Josh has ways to counter it, ways to duress it, but no ways to actually kill it.
Right now the graveyard is just the Doomwake Giant?
Correct, just the Doomwake Giant for the moment, which doesn't look like it's going to do a whole lot except attack Ashiok, which is good. Though I guess you can whip back Doomwake Giant, then you can use Farika on the Monastery Mentor. Oh, no, that's not exactly what you want to do. So no. Ashiok just putting a Seder Wayfinder into play. Now Farika, you have to use it on yourself. So actually what Gerry can do now is whip back Doomwake Giant. Because Josh put Wayfinder into play, you can -1/- on the Wayfinder. It goes back to your graveyard, and then you Farika the Wayfinder. It's a second enchantment that comes into play. That kills the Soulfire Grandmaster. But Josh putting Wayfinder into play enables the triple Treasure Cruise in his hand.
Josh is willing to sacrifice his Grandmaster to fuel the delve.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially since it does mean that Gerry has to use the Doomwake, and the Doomwake would have killed the Ashiok anyway under most circumstances, so you might as well get value out of it. Josh is going to draw a lot of cards here. I mean, Gerry still has 3 cards in his hand, and Whip Farika means he's got a decent amount of long game, but yeah, Josh is going to get to see a ton of cards.
One of them was a dress. Maybe we can get a peek at the chat to see what's in Gerry's hand.
Looks like
Opulent Palace, Murderous Cut, and the dress took a Read the Bones.
Murderous Cut, not super relevant here. Gerry can kill all of Josh's creatures anyway. So this is interesting. We're going to see a kind of long game where, Treasure Cruise versus Whip. I wonder how that plays out.
It seems like Treasure Cruise wins unless Gerry comes up with a way to fill his yard, right?
Yeah, if Gerry draws... Gerry gets to whip back Doomwake, killing the Wayfinder. Like, putting the Wayfinder in play was actually just a big liability. So instead of using Farika on the Wayfinder, because you don't care about the Soulfire Grandmaster, you just next turn whip back the Wayfinder to start filling her graveyard. I actually think this is going to be kind of close. Josh does have 7 cards in hand, though. So at the end of the day, Josh has a ton of cards to
one of which is a Treasure Cruise. 6 of which are new. Have been acquired over the last 2 turns.
Yeah, and the one Treasure Cruise. It's not often that you need a 3rd Treasure Cruise, but once you get the first 2 rolling, the 3rd does get a little bit better. I got to admit. Gerry with Opulent Palace, Murderous Cut, neither of those are super relevant right now, so kind of really what he draws could change this. Otherwise, I would expect the play to be whip back the Doomwake, smash for 7, and then set up whip on a Seder Wayfinder here.
Yeah, this is a live look-in on the 4th of our first-round matches. Oh, Sidisi, Brood Tyrant. She's feeling interesting.
So Gerry drew a Sidisi, and part of the reason that's relevant is it makes Farika live. So Gerry gets to attack for way more damage now. So yeah, Sidisi was definitely a good draw there.
Yeah, he whiffed on creatures, so no whip fuel and no zombies, but turning on Farika is not bad.
No, it's basically giving you a 5/5 haste here.
See people in the chat asking about the hand cams. This is a live look-in. This was not our featured match. It just happens to be the last first-round match going. So we will have hand cams back for the semis. Just didn't have time to set them up for... Well, it's basically not possible to set them up for all 4 first-round matches at the same time.
So confirming that we're not going to have hand cams anymore tonight. That is not what's happening.
I think that's what I said.
No. Well, we're going to have hand cams every other match tonight. There's going to be 3 more matches, the 2 semis, then the finals match. But given that this is our backup match, we're not able to set up hand cams for our primary and backup match. So luckily, Gerry's playing basically with his hand on the board here. So at the very least, we know what he's got going. Yeah, Soulfire Grandmaster not looking great, though. Soulfire Grandmaster can start buying back spells at this point. This is where it does get kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he's in here for, right? I mean, giving your spells lifelink isn't relevant in an Esper deck, but giving your spells buyback seems like it is.
Yeah.
All right, Whip targeting Wayfinder.
Which will trigger Sidisi if anything gets hit, plus fill a graveyard for future Whips. It looks like Whip is actually going to outrace Treasure Cruise here. I mean, Josh can potentially have some good plays here. Feels like an Aether Spouse this turn is kind of interesting, actually. But Josh is he didn't do much last turn, so he's got to have something to play. He's got 7 cards in his hand, 7 mana available. There aren't that many ways you can combine his deck and end up with no plays.
What is his plan, though? How is he supposed to fight this whip? It's Aether Spouts?
I would imagine that's his best solution looking at his deck list, because he doesn't have really any other sweepers, but it's also possible that Josh just has a hand with like Murderous Cut plus Valorous Stance, just going to cast multiple spells in the same turn here. One of the I think downsides of playing this Treasure Cruise deck.
Cut with buyback?
Yeah, Murderous Cut with buyback is kind of interesting too. That does give you a little bit of value, though. Pharika's still live because of the Wayfinder.
Yeah, Wayfinder hit a Den Protector, it looks like.
Yeah, that's not the biggest combo with Whip. You can whip back Sidisi, though, so the chain kind of does keep going here. Murderous Cut with buyback is funny because each successive Murderous Cut gets worse, because at this point Josh's graveyard is completely empty, and we know he's got Treasure Cruise and Murderous Cut. So he is kind of losing value here. And he's just taking a ton of damage, taking 9.
Yeah, no, Gerry just goes for old-fashioned Murderous Cut to kill your only blocker. Crunches over, gains a bunch of life, deals a bunch of damage. I don't think Death is going to miss Raptor this time.
Yeah. Gerry is winning 31-4, which clearly is the only metric that matters. Also, Gerry has a whip and a Den Protector in play. I wonder how many Ojutai's commands Josh has in his hand right now.
Well, at least I've gotten onto the pun scoreboard.
Yeah, no, that one is good. I will give you credit. So, I guess if Josh had something like an Elspeth, though Mentor is actually a start. Mentor plus like multiple action spells in the same turn can help Josh stabilize, though, again, the long game power of Whip is still going to be evident here.
I mean, how does Josh deal 31 damage in time?
Oh, wow, Gerry drew Hero's Downfall. So Josh is going to need like a Valorous Stance saving his Mentor here, or a Negate or a Dissolve.
Yeah. Does have 6 cards in his hand.
One's a Murderous Cut and one is a Treasure Cruise. Like, if Raptor's play here is just Murderous Cut your Den Protector, that does not put Josh in a good spot. It puts him actually almost just dead to Sidisi, just about. Josh deciding which of his instants to play. He's got to have multiple instants to play, otherwise he would also just be dead.
Is the Doomwake Giant gone now? That's not still
Doomwake Giant is still there. So Doomwake is basically Josh needs a way to play an instant now, and then I guess play another one when the Doomwake comes out. It looks like Mentor might be dying here. Though actually, what Josh could have is Anticipate, make a token, Valorous Stance, my Mentor, make a token, and then next turn Murderous Cut to trigger Mentor, make another token, and make my token survive Doomwake Giant. But I think Raptor is kind of like grasping at straws here. He's on his last legs.
Yeah, basically needs a 2-mana instant to counter the Hero's Downfall, one way or the other.
Yeah, Negate or Valorous Stance both help. But even then, that just means Josh is not dying. He's got a chance with Mentor in play. It's not like he just wins the game or anything.
His path to dealing 30 damage, though, almost certainly involves a whole bunch of monk tokens.
Yeah, I'm actually not as concerned about dealing the 30. If Josh can stabilize, Mentor could end the game in like 2 turns, but especially with like Treasure Cruise. But yeah, it looks like the Mentor's going down here.
Yeah. Can't even block the Den Protector with the monk, right?
So Gerry could whip back the Doomwake, but he knows about Murderous Cut, so I'd imagine him to take that he's going to take that into consideration. Still, if he whips back Doomwake, Josh Murderous Cuts in response to the trigger, and then Gerry can use Pharika to trigger Doomwake again to kill the monk before prowess, which means that Den Protector does lethal. So Josh needs... I don't even know if 2 spells does it, actually. Josh, I think, is dead here if Gerry just uses Pharika.
All right. Well, there is Murderous Cut as response to the Doomwake Giant, trying to save his monk token. Cutting the Den Protector. There's Pharika as a response, just the way you predicted. That -1/-1 is above the prowess, so the monk does die, and Doomwake Giant is going to attack for lethal.
Gerry casting a Den Protector to activate Pharika, and just still had all these.
Still had all these, yes. So Gerry Thompson advances to the semifinals. It'll be we can actually look at the bracket, see where we are now that we have finished the first round. It's going to be Gerry Thompson taking on Brian Kibler. It's going to be Owen Turtenwald taking on Tom Ross. So how do these matchups stack up for the semis?
Albs on aggro, depending on how many Bile Blights Owen has, and it did not look like he had a lot of Bile Blights. That is like the key against Jeskai tokens. Or at least, but Brimaz is not actually that bad against Jeskai tokens either. So, and Owen has 4 Drown in Sorrow on the sideboard. So, yeah, it depends. I mean, Owen does have I think a decent build against Jeskai tokens. So I don't mind that matchup too much. Sidisi Whip is usually pretty good against green-black, or, well, green-based, like, aggro-ish decks, because Sidisi's good at clogging the board and gaining a bunch of life. So I guess my prediction is Gerry versus Owen in the finals, and then Gerry winning against Owen, but we'll see how it plays out. I think these matchups are all very close. It's not like I think that's an overwhelming favorite to happen.
Yeah, be a nice welcome back to competitive play for Gerry Thompson. It's kind of finally shaken off the last shackles from his internship inside Magic R&D. I think Dragons was the last set he had advanced knowledge of. So,
yep, he's going to be playing in Pro Tour Vancouver. So that'd be Magic Origins.
Yeah. So is that he had an invite essentially when he took the internship? He had an invite coming, and so they let him stick it in the bank and essentially cash it in if he chose to leave.
He had more than an invite coming. He was actually gold. So
was he gold?
Yeah. So the year he decided to leave. So in, kind of representing that, or I guess because of that, Wizards Organized Play decided to give him an invite to approach her after he left, which I think is completely fair. It's not like he earned these invites and then didn't use them. And I think it's, to work for Wizards. So I think it's very reasonable to not dissuade people. It's not like you have to come here and abandon all semblance of competitive play. So
completely agree.
Of course, you unfortunately kind of did end up traveling down that path to some degree.
Sort of. It's not like they took my invites away, though, right? I have all the invites I could ever want, if only I was allowed to play in Pro Tours.
Well, you've got some paths to make that happen. I just don't think they're very good ones.
No, I've poked and prodded. So yeah, I think you guys all know the story Luis is alluding to. My wife still works. I left 3 or 4 years ago. So is happily employed, and yeah. So it turns out the divorce of convenience. Like if I'm still living in the same house as Dell, doesn't matter what our actual marital status is. So I looked into that. Understands me and gamers too well, so that doesn't work.
I'm not only impressed that you looked into that you would also admit that you did. But
I also looked
there
into
we go.
If I had a residence, somehow just like set up a second household somewhere and claim to live there, also not good enough. If I was married but living elsewhere, that's not good enough. I tried, trust me. Gamers got a game, right?
yeah, I guess that's true. So which match are we going to start on? It looks like we're going to start on Owen against Tom Ross. So yes. Tom is playing actually a slightly more controlling Jeskai tokens list, it looks like, just because he does have some Monastery Mentors, and he does have, I guess, actually a decent amount of burn spells in a wide range of cards. He's got a lot of 2 and 1-ofs, which, I tend to like. I'm a fan of playing like 3-1-2, 2-1, just because it keeps your opponents guessing. Mm-hmm. And if you're good at drawing the cards you need, it helps. Though, with cards like Jeskai Ascendancy and Anticipate, it actually does reward you for having a greater mix of cards because you have card selection. So I do like that for that reason as well.
Yeah, and the deck lists are posted, by the way, guys. If you're out there, and you want to play along at home, the deck lists are all up at this point. And in fact, now that the players are through the first round, they are allowed to look at the deck lists as well. Looks like Tom Ross is having trouble getting the hand cam set up. I may have to ferry information via text about the cards in Tom's hand. We'll see if we can get that fixed, or if we got to do a little bit of radio. Yeah, okay. Sounds like we're going to go with radio for Tom Ross's hand. But we should have Owens. I mean, we had him set up in the first round. That should still just work. Yeah, deck list link in the chat, in fact. So great.